When Clements and Bissett meet Grace to negotiate, Grace kills Bissett. Clements tries to kill her, but she disarms him, and Grace secretly records their conversation as insurance. The movie begins as the Black Swans, a family-owned private military company led by William Lewis, drives by the countryside of Georgia. His daughter, Grace, tells him it's time to name a successor for the company. She says her older brother, Oliver, is ambitious enough to be one, but William says Oliver is replaceable. The band of mercenaries arrives at Valley Pass, Republic of Georgia, to conduct the government's dirty business. Britgas, one of the UK's largest gas corporations, wants to extend its gas pipeline through Valley Pass. But the village refuses to evacuate the land for the corporation's project. Military Commander George Clements hires the Black Swans to clear the path, whatever it takes. When Grace tries to buy the villagers' consent, they open fire on the Black Swans, and Grace is injured when a bullet grazes her neck. In retaliation, Grace orders to massacre all men and boys in the village, leaving behind the women to spread fear. Unbeknownst to them, a young girl records the killings on her phone and soon catches public attention. Meanwhile, in the United Kingdom, at the Buckingham estate, SAS operator Tom Buckingham. The butler, Callum, warmly greets him and inquires about his arrival. Tom responds that he's only there to pick something up from Nana's box. Knowing what it means, Callum leads him to Nana's library. He soon finds her engagement ring inside the library and reminisces about her. Callum assures him that Sophie's a fine choice and that his grandmother would be proud of him. Later, a news report announced that the British government issued a red notice for the Black Swan for their alleged atrocities in the Republic of Georgia. The International Criminal Court demands that the UK extradite the accused, who lives in North London, to The Hague to stand trial. After the leaked video, British Prime Minister Attwood commands his military advisor, George Clements, to execute the Black Swans before any evidence could lead to them. In St. Thomas Hospital in Westminster, Tom arrives to surprise Sophie with tickets for a flight to Paris, and he already has her shifts covered. She's reluctant to say yes, but he doesn't wait for an answer as he gets a message from work. Before leaving, Tom tells her he will meet her at the airport. Later in Hampstead Heath, North London, Grace informs her father that the SAS is about to move in on them and suggests they escape to the US. William insists that England is home and explains he was using Clements for his means. So, Grace offers to enact the safeguard. Soon, Tom arrives, and he asks about the place to the pregnant woman tending to the garden, who asks him to leave. He inquires about her coming baby, but upon questioning, he figures the bump is fake. Tom sedates her and sees the baby bump covering a vest and a gun. He reports this to his commander, Major Bissett, through his comms. Bissett reminds the whole team that they should serve red notice on the Lewises using non-lethal means, but Clement says to kill them immediately. Upon Bissett's orders, Tom and his team advance, and the Black Swans fire at them. They struggle to open the barricaded doors, but they soon get it open and encounter some armed men inside. They neutralize them and find William in the dining room, patiently waiting for them. Tom goes upstairs to find Grace while Clements meets with William alone. William negotiates with Clements to spare Grace. Clements agrees to care for Grace, and in exchange, he kills William. Meanwhile, Tom knocks out several Black Swans upstairs but still cannot locate Grace. He corners a woman, but she shows an unclipped grenade as she turns around. She advances at them, and they quickly kill her. Tom throws himself and the other soldier out of the window to avoid the blast. They manage to escape with only minor injuries. The major berates them for killing the woman. Still, Tom's partner, Declan Smith, defends him, and they explain that the woman isn't Grace Lewis and must have escaped before the raid. Bissett suspends Tom in the meantime. Later, Tom and Declan catch up, and Tom explains that he will be proposing soon. Declan asks if he loves Sophie, but Tom hesitates to answer, which leaves Tom to contemplate his love for Sophie. Afterward, Tom goes to Sophie to have his cut stitched up. Sophie expresses her concerns that they are nothing alike, but Tom insists it's why they work great together. Tom decides to cancel their flight to Paris and instead ride the train. Soon, they ride their train to Paris. Unbeknownst to them, Grace Lewis is also there on the same train. Sophie tries to ask about what happened to his mission, but Tom ignores her questions by going to the bathroom. Grace removes her disguise in the bathroom, and when the train inspector comes in to check her passport, she immediately kills him. On the way to the bathroom, Tom sees a glimpse of Grace and goes to investigate it. He breaks down the locked bathroom and sees the train inspector's corpse. He calls Declan to report to Major Bissett that he has Grace on the train and is in pursuit. As soon as Bissett orders a confirmation on Grace, she gets a message that she has been spotted. Meanwhile, Sophie converses with an elderly woman nearby as the train enters the Channel Tunnel. At the same time, Grace meets with her associates, and together they hijack the train's controls and stop it while Tom alerts the fire alarm, and the fire brigade is dispatched. The Black Swans destroy the channel cameras and create a fire in the English Channel. Soon the fire brigade arrives but is revealed to be more of the Black Swans in disguise. Tom finds them discussing their plan and attacks one of them, which alerts the others. He tries to barricade them, but they blow up the doors, making all the train windows explode from the pressure. The train passengers panic as many of them are injured and frightened. The elderly woman Sophie was talking to has a nasty cut on her leg from the glass, and Sophie tries to stop the bleeding while Tom tries to contact her. The armed mercenaries board the train, threaten the passengers, and kill anyone who disobeys their orders. Tom manages to escape the train through the window, evading the patrolling men. Tom informs Declan that Grace is not planning an escape but an attack and that about 24 armed swans are with her. Declan tells him to leave and meet up with them by the channel entrance, but Tom refuses, saying he must find Sophie first. Meanwhile, Sophie and the other passengers are ordered not to disembark, or they will be killed. Sophie finds out the elderly woman passed due to blood loss. Tom's doing recon and sending the information to Declan, who forwards it to Bissett. Soon, Grace gets the same images sent to her. She orders that all passengers' phones be confiscated. While the swans confiscate phones, Sophie hides hers in her boot and gives them another passenger's phone. In the Prime Minister's residence, Atwood orders Clements to kill Grace. On the train, Grace calls for a doctor to help an injured girl, and Sophie volunteers to help. Soon, SAS operatives arrive at the channel entrance and enter through the service tunnel, but they cannot get through the fire door, so they set up a control point there. Later, Clements arrives and orders them to get in and kill Grace, but Bissett protests as barging in will compromise the hostages. Clements decides to put Declan in charge of the operation. While Sophie patches up the wounded girl in the bathroom, Tom manages to get through the toilet and tells her to escape. Still, Sophie refuses to leave the other passengers, who may need medical assistance, and asks him to save the young girl. Sophie and Tom help the girl through the hole, but the guard outside hears the commotion, so Sophie asks Tom to knock her out so it wouldn't look like she helped. At the same time, Declan and the SAS operatives advance to the train's rear, but the swans have expected them. A shootout occurs, and the SAS retreats to their control point. Grace orders her brother, Oliver, to find the girl and Tom. Later, Grace calls the control point. Bissett tries to negotiate a peaceful resolution, but Grace gives them two options. The Prime Minister can go on live TV and admit that the British government ordered the clearing of the village in Georgia or wire her a $500 million ransom from Britkas and reveal that the Britkas hired the SAS to hire the Black Swans. He reluctantly agrees to her terms, but she must release 100 hostages. She agrees, and they must bring Clements for the exchange. Meanwhile, Tom lets the young girl run away but gets injured by Oliver. Grace interrogates Sophie on how the girl escaped, and they find out the phone she gave isn't her real one. A black swan brings her back to the bathroom to find her phone. They search for it, but Sophie's pushes back and cuts the agent with scissors. Grace stops the fight and orders the agent to go down the hole to find the phone, which is eventually found. When Clements and Bissett meet Grace to negotiate, Grace kills Bissett. Clements tries to kill her, but she disarms him, and Grace secretly records their conversation as insurance. While Tom tends to his injury, he finds some black swans drilling and a secret Britkas gas pipeline in the Channel Tunnel. If Grace doesn't get the money and then be granted safe passage, she will blow up the tunnel and kill everyone in it. Tom finds a man preparing the detonating device next to the pipeline and manages to kill him. He calls Declan to inform him of the device and that he will return to find Sophie. Declan tries to persuade him to escape, but Tom finally realizes he loves Sophie. It's revealed that Declan is working with Grace when she calls him to ask about Tom and orders him to help kill him. Declan also shows that Tom's girlfriend is on the train. Grace realizes it's Sophie and uses Sophie's phone to contact Tom to trap him, but Tom figures it out immediately. Tom finds Oliver looking for him and uses him as a hostage in exchange for Sophie, but Grace kills Oliver. Tom creates an explosion as a distraction to get away. Grace calls the control point, and Declan informs that the money has been transferred to the Eurocopter and is fueled for them. Clements is suspicious of Declan working with Grace. Grace escapes with Sophie and an injured Oliver into the gas pipeline but is pursued by Tom. Oliver stays to try and stop Tom, and the two men face off, but Tom manages to remove Oliver's mask, and he passes out from the gas. Grace's team uploads the video of Clements and tries to escape among the hostages. Then, the SAS snipers kill them when their identities are confirmed. Not finding Grace among the hostages, Clements realizes that Declan is working with her. Once out of the pipe, Grace blows up the pipeline, and Tom narrowly escapes the blast. The SAS operatives are killed in the explosion, except Declan and Clements. Clements tries to negotiate with Declan, but Declan knocks him out. At the same time, Grace stabs Sophie in her thigh and runs away. Sophie says she finally understands Tom and tells him to catch Grace instead of staying with her. After catching up to Grace, the two fight, and Grace is fatally injured. Grace praises Tom's tenacity and tries to persuade him by offering him her successor to the Black Swans. Tom rejects the offer and finally kills Grace. Soon, Tom and Sophie continue their trip to Paris, healing from their injuries. After some thought, Tom proposes to Sophie. She initially refuses, believing him incapable of love, but agrees after he declares his love for her. The UK PM and Britca's representative are questioned. All blame is pointed to Declan as the sole surviving member of Grace's team. Thus, the British government issues a red notice on Declan. The movie ends as Tom and Sophie get married in Spain, after which Tom receives a call from Clements, who informs him that they trace the ransom money along with Declan. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.